I'd like to welcome Christoph to the stage, who is going to take us through this journey. Thanks, Christoph.
Thank you. Hello, and my name is Christoph. And as we can see, we have this type of technology has huge implications to any kind of industry that's out there. Not only in the past and not only in the present, but even more in the future. There's no industry that's not going to be not only affected, but really disrupted in the way how products, how services are delivered, how value is being created, and how we basically take care and interact and engage with customers, with clients, with users. So, in order to talk about what's hot and not in AI, which is quite often an interesting tagline, I would say, let me show you some examples on where the potential lies in terms of the need of applying AI, different type of AI techniques. And I would say that from a Watson perspective, from an IBM perspective, we are working quite long for it on this kind of working for quite a while on it. Where is it? Here? There we are. So when you think about Watson in specific, we started out in the 2000s out of IBM Research as a grand challenge. And the challenge was to make it possible for machine to understand natural human language, which is the core of our communication, human to human. In order for machines to understand that, it took more than 20 researchers over 3 years to achieve this goal. And we tested it with Jeopardy, this popular quiz show in 2011, where Watson finally has beaten the champions in Jeopardy and has proven that this is a technology that can be used. And it was a major milestone. And if that works, yeah, that works. And since 2011, for us with Watson, we aim to amplify human creativity. We also aim to establish transformative relationships between humans and machines, because that's at the core of it. And what we are doing now in order to achieve this is that we are trying to understand people's personality, people's intent, people's tone to become creative for a system, because otherwise these systems will still seem to be dumb in the far future. And in the last attempt where we tried to prove this was in a collaboration with 20th Century Fox, where Watson was trained to model scenes visually to create a movie trailer for this specific sci-fi horror movie, Morgan. And they did it by detecting salient sentiments, so if it's a tender moment or happiness. And what's important is that it worked side by side with the humans, with the editors and the directors, and reduced the timing from a month to a day in order to make this work and make this happen. And that shows the potential of one type of this technology in general around how it affects our work and how it affects our daily lives. And therefore, we say that it will create, it's in this area, we will see and redefine the relationship between humans and machines. And that was too quick. So when we think about where this is coming from, since John McCarthy coined the term AI in the mid-50s, so we are now moving towards a $70 billion industry by 2020. Now we're roughly at 15 billion, so we see a massive growth in that. We also see that the market is highly in demand of skills that know how to work and how to apply machine learning, with over 1,000 new jobs being created every month on a global basis. And what we also see that there are thousands of companies working with AI. And in specific, when I showed this type of similar slide a couple months ago, we see very hot areas. And one of them is, of course, machine learning applications, where we now have 420 companies. When I looked at this graph a couple months back, I said there have only been 260. So just in a couple of months, it nearly doubled. On the other hand, what we saw is a massive increase in computer vision platform and app companies, as we heard with Evan today, because that's a core of making machines understand our environment to grasp the context of any kind of actions. So the numbers are dramatically increasing because there's a huge potential to apply this type of technology. But what are these companies doing is that they understand that AI techniques can serve customers and users' emotional needs too. So not only functional needs in order to get, to order food, but also to, having kind of an empathy about understanding why I need something, why I have a feeling about a specific issue or situation, and then react on it. And this changes the way how it can interact with us. It also makes it possible to use data science to design products and services. So when we look into product management, the way how we develop products is changing because data science is becoming a core and a core part of this of the product development process. And in addition, what these companies do is that they also understand that these AI techniques can serve many users in different ways, and also users can therefore react in different ways. And the example that I'm usually presenting is when we see a self-driving car or a robot, what we usually is we start reacting in a different way, because you're jumping in front of the car just to see how it reacts. We start to get over to the robot and try to make him fall down and everything. So when we develop products out there, we need to realize that also we as humans, we're not going to interact in a normal way. And therefore, it will redefine, humanity at all, as the CEO of NVIDIA is saying it, and that's a valid point. And I think nobody does think in a different way about it. So when we think about AI, where's the basic need to apply these type of technologies? I would say it's in any kind of industry and in any kind of area where there's a heavy part or heavy lifting in terms of knowledge and also a lot of experience involved in order to make decisions. And we have this you can take the medical or the doctor side, we can take anything that has to do with legal, with the finance industry, but also the technical industry. So everywhere where we as humans usually take years to acquire knowledge, where it takes us years to get relevant experience in order to deliver a job, to deliver the value to our customers, these are areas which are very well preset for AI in order to make a change and to help us deliver better products. And as an example, we can take can take a doctor today. A doctor these days would need roughly spend 160 hours every week in order to stay up to date. Patient records, white papers, these kind of things. So he can't do that, right? So please still go to the doctor. He's still one of the best ways to cure this potential disease. But in order to stay up to date, in order to serve you as a customer, as a patient well, he needs an assistant. He needs somebody that can help him to define what your disease can be about, to stay on top, how to cure it, etc. But the jumping point is not just to present the knowledge, but it's also the way how we can access this type of knowledge. And this usually happens through conversations. So on the one hand, building a knowledge base is important. On the other hand is how you can interact with a system that has acquired all the knowledge in order to access and to use it. And that's why at this very moment, anything around conversational applications, everything around where we have human interactions that can be scaled, that need to be personalized, is highly in demand, and this is an area where lots of companies are working in. And when we take a Gartner report, it says that by 2021, a conversational AI-first approach will supersede mobile-first or cloud-first. So more than 85% will develop new products just on the basis or with the focus on how AI can use it and how AI can actually deliver the value to the customer. And when we look into this, the current attempts are, of course, in those areas where we tend to deliver very personalized advice, very personalized service, but we usually can't do that because of the issues on the scaling side. So when we look into the hospitality industry, we see a lot around on the travel side, a lot around any kind of other servicing side in terms of food, in terms of special needs, where solutions around AI are not really good at the moment, but it's the areas where the people see the most potential. The second thing is when we look into self-driving cars. As an example, it suits quite well, where AI is not just a technology that delivers a service, but it's also moving into an area where it becomes the face of a company. So when you think about what happens if you put a conversational application out there to your users, to your customers, they're starting interacting with it. So what it builds up is your brand, it's an engagement and a relationship to the user, and it's therefore very important to think about how this affects your company, how this affects your brand, in terms of voice, in terms of language, in terms of how it uses language, in terms of how it interacts with you. And that's something to have in mind when we think about products, that conversational type of interfaces are the human type of face of your product, of your solution. And it also helps to, AI technology is on the sense of when you think about commerce, where we're trying to adopt the on-site store and the shop approach, it will finally be being capable of delivering the promise of moving into a very personalized and shopping experience online, and not just on the shopping side online, but also from a content perspective, how we consume content. So we talked to quite some interesting companies today already that are trying to personalize content and do this on scale, and that's where we can deliver the value. So when we think about conversational applications, we are right now in the first wave. So the first wave are the ones where we can basically take FAQs and put them into conversational application, and with that we can scale down or scale the way of how we interact with the user. FAQs are very good examples because the user interface is usually quite bad with that. But when we go into the second wave, these conversational applications will be capable to learn and to monitor human-to-human interactions, and therefore change the way how we interact, how it interacts with us as a human. But in the third wave, and that's something where we need to think about 5 to 10 years plus, is where conversational applications will be capable of defining themselves the conversational flow, defining them, setting goals themselves for a typical conversation. So moving from a let's say customer service conversation into a sales conversation, and therefore having a real proper engagement that's very human-like. So answering the question, what's hot, I think is is one way, but I have a thought about what's not hot in, or to identify areas which may be not hot AI, because everything seems like that. And therefore I took some graphs out there. And the one way, this is a graph from CB Insights showing where the investment is going. And as we see, there's not any industry in 2016 that is not moving, where the investment is not moving. So the hot areas have been, of course, all the healthcare and the healthcare market. Robotics, interestingly, it seems like that it's moving a little, slowing a little bit down. But we see that any industry from an investor perspective is interested. So if you're a startup, that's good to be there. On the other hand, Tractica has a nice graph on the revenue by region from artificial intelligence, which is increasing, but we still see that the revenues are still slow, are growing fast, but the revenue are still low, which also means that we are still more in the research and scientific state than in a real state of delivering proper business or having proper business models in order to make a company cash flow positive and successful. And one other last graph I want to show is something that I found that's quite funny, is where consumers think that the use of AI is good. And we see that, for example, the least one where they think it's good, it's being a companion to talk to. And that's kind of controversial to the conversational applications that I mentioned before, because conversational applications are the companion to talk to. And that's where we need to change, and we need to learn how we deliver this kind of technology to our customers, to our users, because that makes the difference in the already. To show the customer and to show the user how to basically behave, how to interact with an intelligent machine. And therefore, I want to close that up with a statement of CodeCon, where it says that the interesting question will not be that a company is using AI, but it's how they applied and used it in the most novel ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. Any questions? I think we can take one or two. Don't go away just yet. I think people are still shy about AI, but I'd like to.
Are they shy? No, I don't think so.
I have a question. It's way up there. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you for the presentation.
Hi.
What's your opinion about the dangers of AI? Elon Musk's view?
Dangers? What specific one? Jobs or turning against humans? Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, right, our goal at least is to work in a collaborative way with machines. I wouldn't say that there are no dangers, but that's something that happens with any kind of technology that is out there. And AI is kind of a very broad type of technology that's infiltrating basically every type of industry and every type of product out there. So it's not possible basically to stop it, but in order to be actively involved in it, will help us to fight maybe dangers. But any kind of new technology, any kind of new service is usually also used by people who are abusing it. So I think the best approach to move against the dangers and to basically try to endanger it is to be actively involved, try to push the development forward to the better. And yeah, that's basically it. I just shut it out. It's not such a big room.
Thanks for the presentation, Christoph. My question is about something like Slack. I see that, and even in my team, you have people sitting across from each other at the same table, talking to each other on Slack. And part of it is because you want a written record of what was discussed. But is Watson doing anything with a Slack type program where you're watching what people are saying to each other via text that they otherwise would be saying to each other in person? Is there any difference between what they say, typing versus talking? And what kind of insights can you derive out of that? Is there any sort of Slack type product at Atlassian or something that's connected to Watson?
So Slack is connected to Watson. So we just announced it last week that they are using for the developer for the bot platform also Watson. I would say that there's a huge difference between, let's say, spoken language and written language. Written language is usually, but it's more to the point, and we see a difference in the people how they express it. So it's more similar. In the language, we're using more variations of language, slang and these kind of things, which in text is more, let's say, it's more similar. With these type of integrations, we are working with a couple of platforms and companies out there that are using Watson in one way or the other to provide it either to the developers themselves or they're building products with that. But does it answer your question?
Yeah, I was more curious about, do people modify how they say, and are there any other platforms that you can see where it's audio exchange, and then do people modify how they talk to each other based on audio versus text?
I don't think I get your question. So the people are modifying?
So do you have any data that shows that if people are having an in-person or a Skype-type conversation, the way they talk to each other, does that change if they're talking to each other via text, if they're chatting via Slack, for example?
I'm not aware of any kind of data or information or research that has been done on that, no. But I would guess so, yeah, that it's different as mentioned, right? The type of language that they're using, people try to be, on the one hand, more to the point, on the other hand, it's more elaborative, they're more open, so I would guess so that there's a huge difference, yeah. Can I ask you a question back? Why do you think it's relevant?
Because I think that there's corporate language that develops, and company culture can influence how people talk to each other. And then when you have people that have quote unquote offline conversation, the way in which they describe their problems versus if they feel like they're being monitored or listened to by some sort of an AI system on the back end. Instant messaging systems inside companies, when people know that that data is being used to derive insights about what they're talking about, then when you hear them actually talking sort of like, just outside the bathroom, for example, or by the coffee machine, that language that they use changes. The way they talk about their products, their projects, their issues changes if they feel like there's no monitoring whatsoever.
Okay.